Okay, thank you very much for everybody for joining us. We have some technical difficulties with Robert trying to join, but really pleased that we have him with us now. My name's Stephen Cinnamon. I run a meetup group in London, UK called the Astral Projection Forum, UK Astral Projection Forum, and we've been running events in the UK since about 2006. Came across Robert Bruce's work back around about 1999, and I've been fascinated by his work and many others since. Robert is a prolific investigator of all things unknown, and is most well known for his work on the out-of-body experience, energy work, and healing. He's got a huge online community on his website. He's got a forum area, online training, and most recently he's been producing training material as video work, really highly well produced, professionally produced, and he's got some online publications which he'll talk about a little bit later on. Today we're going to be looking at spirits, masters, angels, and other phenomena, and Robert's particular unique personal experience and spin on those subjects. So I'm going to hand you over to Robert Bruce. He's going to tell you a bit about himself, and we'll bring in some interesting stories, and later in the conversation we'll hopefully bring in some guests and we'll have some questions and answers. Anyone that's joining us now can post questions. We'll pick them up later on. And if you're able to join us in video or sound, we'll try and bring you in. Can't promise. And you'll be able to have a personal conversation with Robert as well. So Robert Bruce, really good to see you. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I believe it's early evening in Perth in Australia, and that you've got wonderful weather. Here in the UK it's about 5 degrees and sunny. Hope it's well with you.
Good day, Stephen. Working? Yep. That's better.
You're online, Robert.
Yeah, well, my name's Robert Bruce, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with my work. My books, Astral Dynamics, energy work, and the Practical Psychic Self-Defense Handbook, and plus my online programs at astraldynamics.com. So Stephen has organised this, and we are just getting oriented. Things would have been fine, but my main computer, my desktop, suddenly decided that its camera wasn't going to work, and so I rapidly grabbed my laptop, and a few updates later, you know, I made it here. So everything seems to be working okay. Anyway, the topic of this talk is basically to answer questions along the theme of angels, masters, and spirits, and how to address those sort of issues. So any question around that's fairly broad sort of a topic is okay. And we have some questions lined up, and Stephen is going to handle the questions, and that because he's graciously facilitating this. Just to him, we're trying to get the resolution a little bit better. But if you look at it, I'm 12,000 miles away from you, and we have like a 1/10 of a second delay, and that's almost unacceptable. It tickles me, it really does, yeah. So now I could quickly, my laptop's on wireless and my desktop is hardwired, so I'll get much stronger connection with that, but I don't want to mess around with that right at the moment as we started. So anyway, that's where we're coming at, and Stephen, have we got any questions? Because that's what I do. I can't hear you, Stephen.
Yeah. Hi, Robert. Thanks. If you bring your bandwidth down rather than up, it'll actually improve the image a little bit. So bring it to about medium. Okay. Yeah. Guys, thanks for your patience while we get the technical side sorted out. So you can try that for a second.
Okay, I've dropped it down one notch.
That's much better. Perfect. Thank you very much, Robert. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I can drop it down more.
no, bring it back to where it was. That's great.
Okay, that's where it was. I dropped it down one notch.
Yeah. So if you bring it up a notch again,
To maximum again.
or
Okay.
no, or just leave it at medium should be fine. Yeah, it was fine for a minute. It'll vary, I think. Let's not worry too much about it. Yeah. So I'm going to bring you forward again, Robert.
Okay. I'll try it 50% medium. How's that?
Okay, let's present you to everybody. Okay, you're online. That'll do, Robert. We'll just go with the flow because we're more interested. We're not too worried about how you look today. We know you're wonderful anyway. I'm sure what people want is your words, your thoughts on some of these matters. So tell me, the question that comes into my mind is, and I've come across this when speaking to other individuals who are interested in these subjects. Quite often people that are interested in, for instance, lucid dreaming are still questioning whether or not encounters with other beings are real, whether they're actually dealing with individualized consciousness that's outside of themselves or external to themselves, or whether they think that these are self-generated projections or not. And I think that your experience goes to show that you're pretty sure you understand the difference and you can demonstrate to other individuals the difference. Maybe you've got an illustration to help us understand that.
Well, good question, Stephen. And I've written volumes on this in my books and other things. If you look at the higher self concept, which is a term I loosely use because without treading on too many toes, because the higher self / God / source, whatever you want it to be, one thing that's very clear about the higher self is it doesn't really care what you call it. And if you can understand the concept that all living beings, everything that's alive is connected, and at a higher level, we are all one consciousness. Now that one consciousness also means we have one consciousness awake, like I'm talking to you now, you're listening to me. You also have one subconscious. And so considering that something is coming up from your subconscious mind and manifesting as a spirit, a master, an angel, or something like that, or even a character in an astral projection or dream, you could fairly say that all such phenomena come from the subconscious or superconscious levels of mind. But that doesn't mean that these beings are any less of an independent spiritual being than you or I are different, because you and I, Stephen, we are connected with every living thing in this universe. And we all share the same, you could say, like the oversoul concept, the source. We all share the same spiritual roots. We're all connected. So if something arises, I mean, if a spirit arises in any scenario in real life, in a lucid dream or an astral projection, it is just as real as you or I is real. I mean, it gets into a bit of a philosophical question, and you can trip over your own thinking in this sense. Now, I've been guilty of deconstructing reality and spiritual reality to the nth degree. And when I get down to bedrock and there's like nothing left, I see these shining threads coming through of the spiritual hierarchy.
Yes, Robert.
This,
yeah.
so
Yeah, we're all ears, Robert. Please carry on.
yeah, the and these threads, which is called, you could call it the hierarchy, the eternal hierarchy, which has always been there, always will be there, is independent of any belief system or faith or religion on the planet. But all belief systems connect to these glowing threads which exist independently. I know I'm going off on a tangent here. But back to the original question, the only way you can really tell if a spiritual being you encounter is real or a figment of your imagination is by its words and actions. You could say by its fruits. That's how you tell if a person, if a being is real or not. But it's the same with other people. If you meet other human beings in the awake physical universe here, it's, a certain amount of discernment is needed to discover whether this person is genuine, who these people say they are, or whether they are pretending.
What's a quick question, Robert? What's a good test to help you verify whether or not an encounter is with a genuine being or not? How do you go about doing that? Or maybe you can give an example of that.
Well, one thing, if you have an experience with an angel or a master or a spirit being here, these are, for most people, fairly rare experiences, so you don't want to blow it. You don't want to waste that experience by cancelling it, and because it has happened. So you want to extract some experience value out of that encounter. Now, but if you are having interaction, if you're having conversation with a spirit being, to know if it's genuine and a positive, meaning a well-intentioned entity, as opposed to a mischievous or deceiving spirit,
okay,
on which there are many, is to ask it to go away for a particular length of time, say 1 month or 2 months, and then to return and renew the association. Now, all positive spirits will abide by your wishes, and they will go away for this point in time and come back. Other spirits or illusions of spirits or thought forms, deceiving, mischievous spirits, will not adhere to that agreement, and they are through that revealed. And that's a way of discovering if something is real and what it says it is, to start with. But this problem doesn't usually exist when you are dealing with higher spirits, masters and angels, because conversation is generally not on the menu.
okay, yeah.
When you meet a higher being, they will instruct you. There's no need to ask any questions because they already know what you need to hear. They read you. You hear about some human beings that have psychic abilities, they can read you. It's like that, but to the nth degree. They can see your life, past, present, and future very, very clearly, and they will give you instruction, or a blessing even, and they will give you usually instruction, something you need to hear. And in a similar way, is you would do the same thing. If you encountered a child that had its shoelaces undone,
yeah,
you would say to that child, "Wait, your shoelaces are undone. You're going to trip over. You better do them up." And in much the same way as when you encounter a master, which is vastly higher than a normal human being, will give you some very salient advice on how to help you.
Tell me about you talked about some of the sort of different levels of beings. Tell me about maybe an encounter you've had, what you might perceive to be a more advanced being, or maybe a spiritual master, and how that maybe an early encounter you had that really impressed you. Maybe you thought there's something more to this than I thought there was prior to that.
Well, the first, you could say, advanced being that I encountered, I was about the age of 4. And that was an ET, extraterrestrial type being. And it appeared, I've told you this story before, but I'm sure a lot of you haven't heard it. And this was just before, like maybe a few days before, I had my first astral projection. And at the time, now, I have memories, little birthplace here, I have memories going back into my mother's womb and before I entered my mother. And that's about as far back as my memories go. And it's not, it doesn't mean I'm wonderful, it just means I discovered a technique, a very simple technique for going back through my memories in my life and my childhood. Sorry. My computer just wanted to do a restart. There you go, my computers. Always at the wrong time. You can learn how to regress your memories back in great detail, because every memory you ever had from the time you were born and even before is locked in your mind in great detail. You do not forget a second of your life. And I've proven this by doing the practice and recovering these memories. But back to...
Rob, sorry to interrupt you, Robert. Do you need to address your computer, or is it okay?
No, it's okay. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
I postponed.
Yeah.
It's some update wanting to happen. Java update. So I set it for a 4-hour reminder. Yeah, you've got a lot of computers.
Yeah, you're coming across fine, Robert. Keep going. It's really good. It's fascinating conversation.
Good. Now, the first advanced spiritual being, apart from myself, that I encountered before I entered my mother, now was an ET, and this is a type they call the tall grey, and it looked a lot like a praying mantis in the the way the joints moved and the way the joints moved, and it had a large triangular head with big eyes. And I at the time I'd had a series of disturbing paralysis episodes, and this is not like the normal astral projection related paralysis with buzzing and paralysis. This was a type of paralysis where I was paralyzed and there was a vibration going through my whole body which was disturbingly sort of high-pitched, the type that literally sets your teeth on edge. If you can imagine biting into a big piece of aluminum foil or paper, that sort of sets your teeth on edge sort of feeling. Very uncomfortable vibration. And during this, I'd had this many times before, even though I was only 4. And this one time, finally, I managed to turn around and look at this light source, because there was always a light coming from above my right shoulder. And this time, and I know now that I was turning around inside my physical skin. It's like my etheric body has some limited degree of movement inside the physical body. So I turned around inside my physical body and looked over my right shoulder, and what I saw was a ball of light the size of a soccer ball, which was pulsating, like a cool sort of light, but pulsating rapidly. And sitting beside that was a large ET of the tall grey variety. And I looked at it in sort of stunned amazement. I was only a little lad, so obviously fear-inducing. And I looked at it for a few seconds, and then the entity looked at me and seemed to realise that I was looking at it. And it reached out to the soccer ball of light there, tweaked it, and I passed out. But after that event, about a few days, few weeks later, I had my first astral projection, whereby my body started to buzz from head to foot, and I just buzzed out of my body. Do you want to say something, Steve?
No, I'm all ears, Robert. Thanks again.
Okay, I thought you broke in there. The sorry, a chair, right? Yeah, and now after that, I had several astral projections a night for many, many years after that. And the first one I remember, I came out of my body flat and I floated feet first as if my bed was coming with me. And I floated through my bedroom and then down the stairs and through the rest of the house. And later ones, I'd go a bit further and I went outside into the street. And this was in Surrey, England, because I was born in England. Moved to Australia when I was 10. Now, over that period of time, after a few projections like that, I stopped going feet first and I started to be more upright and, you know, more normal in astral projection of my point of view. And I taught myself how to move, how to fly, how to do this, how to do that, how to pass through walls and doors, and generally had a huge amount of fun as a child exploring this, and it was totally safe feeling. Going outside and going to the local town and that, I'd pretend I was driving a car, and it was a lot of fun. And learning how to fly, because you know I wanted to fly like Superman, so I tried up and away, you know, and that worked to a limited extent. And then I started experimenting with jumping, and I used to do these giant leaps. And I don't know where I got the idea of that I could fly, because at the age of like probably 5 by now, I had zero exposure to any information on astral projection, and so I was I just knew I could fly. And so over a period of months, I learned how to fly, and you keep falling back. I keep falling back to earth again, and over a period of time, I worked out how to maintain flight, and I learned that it was a way of keeping your mind focused on what you're doing and not thinking about the ground was what worked best. But anyway, I'm digressing here a little bit. You will occasionally encounter advanced spirit beings in the astral, but for the most part, particularly in the real time zone, which is like being a ghost in the real physical world, you'll find that a pretty lonely place. You will occasionally come across another astral projector, but the bulk of humanity, it seems, when they astral project, which every living being, dogs, cats, hamsters, horses, everything astral projects whenever they sleep. But by and large, the astral projected double comes out of the body, floats just above the physical body, mimicking the sleeping position, and that's where they stay. And that's why I think you don't find a lot of people, particularly in the real time zone. You find a lot more people in the astral planes and the mental planes than you do in the real time zone. Because when people float above their physical bodies and they're asleep, they are usually projecting again into the astral planes or into the mental planes, and that's where you'll find them. So you can have a series of subtle bodies that is active at any one time. It sounds confusing.
Can I ask a question related to that, Robert, if that's okay? That it's something that you know Thomas Campbell talked about, and that's having multiple or concurrent projections where your consciousness seems to be duplicated, so that you have an awareness in more than one locale or place at the same time. So could you, in these various forms of projection, have your consciousness in all those, or in any one of those, or some other combination? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the essence of the mind split effect, which is my groundbreaking theory that I discovered through a lot of hands-on exploration when I was trying to explain some of the really strange things which are happening during astral projection. Keeping in mind at the time I was doing a lot of deep trance meditation, like sitting in the chair, I'd be doing astral projections and be active on the real-time zone. But the essence of the mind split is that you can be awake and conscious in your physical body. You can also be awake and conscious in your real-time astral body at the same time. You can also be simultaneously conscious in the astral planes and the mental planes. And possibly, using this as an example here, you can be conscious on multiple levels and in multiple locations simultaneously.
Yeah.
It is definitely ubiquitous in the sense. Now, if you look at this is like a local understanding. If you think about how all life is one, we are all connected. Stephen, you are actually a part of me, and I'm a part of you, and everybody listening here, everybody in the world is a part of me, is a part of source consciousness, you could say, or you could call it like an oversoul consciousness, which includes all animals and living things. Human beings don't have a separate one, sorry to say, but it's all-inclusive, all living beings. And in that sense, this one being, which is the universe, you could say projects itself into living beings, trillions of living beings simultaneously. And if you look at the size of the universe, which appears to be infinite, and there are countless, literally countless, living beings throughout the universe, and all of this is a part of the one consciousness. So if you can imagine a gigantic diamond the size of our galaxy or bigger that has infinite facets on it, and each of these facets is another living being. This one is me, this one is Stephen, this one here is my dog, this one's my cat, this, one for every living being. And as consciousness manifests itself through all these different living beings. So it's not a difficult stretch of the imagination to think that one person can be conscious in multiple locations at the same time. And that was what blocked me for a couple of years of discovering the mind split, was because the general consensus of all spiritual teachers and authors forever has been that when you leave your physical body during an astral projection, your mind and your memories and your soul come with you, leaving your physical body an empty shell. And that, of course, caused huge amounts of problems, that whole concept, until I demonstrated that this is not the case. You never leave your physical body while you still live. But a copy of your consciousness can be projected, an energy copy, which we call an astral projected double, a mental projection, lucid dreams, even all forms of projection, including remote viewing, which is also, remote viewing, of course, is the scientific name for clairvoyance, where the remote viewer, will often bilocate and shift to the target area, which is like an astral projection, a type of an astral projection anyway, where they see firsthand the target area. So you see the idea that you can be in multiple locations is not far-fetched, it's actually quite normal.
Whoa. That's really interesting, Robert, because, if we look at it from a collective consciousness perspective, of course, we're looking at, a much more metaphysical way of thinking about it. And then when we look at different beings and different types of beings, and then we look at, masters, and then angelic and other beings that traditionally in religions we hold as highly evolved, highly advanced, maybe primordial beings, closer to the source, if we want to use a word rather than the G word. How were you impressed by your encounters with beings at that type of level, whether they were positive or negative?
Well, both exist. um, Advanced beings of negative and positive persuasion. But if you look at these beings, where they come from, where did they start? You go back to we go back to a concept called the Big Bang. And you would think to yourself, well, maybe nothing existed before that. But what if it did? Let's say there's been a series of Big Bangs, maybe an infinite series of Big Bangs, and then you bring into this equation multiple copies of the same universe. It gets enormous. From what I can ascertain, the masters, as you call them, advanced spirits and masters, and even the angels, and of which there is a hierarchical structure with angelic structure as well, which is very, very solid. And it doesn't belong to any religion. You could say it's very Kabbalistic, or any religion will look, have the same sort of view. But the thing is, these angels may have been human beings at one point. The masters may have been human beings or another species like humans, maybe before the Big Bang, a long time ago. And how this works is there is one constant throughout the universe, and only one real constant, and that is evolution. Everything from every bacteria to every living being is in the process of evolving. Now this applies to spiritual consciousness as well. Every spiritual being in the universe is in the process of evolving. We evolve through the animal species. I would say an independent soul would start out probably as a bacteria, and maybe over hundreds of millions or billions of years, this bacteria develops some semblance of a soul, you could say, or an independence, and it makes the giant leap into the earthworm, and then to the mouse, and then to mammals and insects, all through the different species of life. And eventually, of course, that consciousness over billions of years evolves to a point where it makes a leap into the higher primates and the human beings. And, if you look at this, there is a case of evolution occurring spiritually alongside how the all animals and living beings in the world evolve. And this is the theory called the transmigration of species, where we live through the different species in the world. And in a very practical, hands-on sense, I have to say that theory appears to be rock solid. There is, when you break it all down to bedrock, there is no other explanation. And unfortunately, that means that human beings were not created special, and it means that human beings have evolved from through all the species on the planet to where we have been led to believe that we are special and independent. But human beings are really, we're animals, and we are no different to any other animal. Interesting, I saw there was a scientific meeting, and one of the scientists there to ratify this agreement was Stephen Hawkins, which they looked very, very thoroughly, some of the best scientists, at animals and human beings and the brains and the minds of them. And they said they cannot see any real noticeable difference between the brains of all the different animals. And they cannot see any reason, any scientific reason why a dog or cat cannot be conscious, a conscious, sentient, thinking being. That it seems like all animals are as conscious as we are. We are more complex. We're a more evolved species on the planet. Like slightly more evolved than chimpanzees, although it can be debatable sometimes, given human behaviour. But it is, if you can start to work with that and put your ego aside and whatever programming you've had from other religious groups and belief systems, it is very, very practical, because then you know what you are and where you are at, and it's sort of a yardstick where you are in the universe. And then it comes down to this. It says, spiritual development, I mean, the practice of learning how to be and learning how to act, to be a better person, to overcome obstacles, to overcome your blockages and personality problems, and to learning to understand life and where you're in it, being kind to other people because you know that these other people are a part of you. So by being kind to other people, you're being kind to yourself. You're helping yourself.
Yeah.
All the spiritual things that we're exposed to all the time, when you really have a look at who you are, what you are, and you go within and you start to understand yourself, that's where it all starts, and then it all starts to make sense. There is no opposing theories anymore. There's no different schools of thoughts anymore. You get this very rock solid idea of who you are and where you are and what's behind you and what's ahead of you. And ahead of you is, of course, once you have done the human species, we, as spiritual beings, we move on to higher forms of life, including the non-human variety. And you may, for example, when you transcend or ascend from humanity, when you've really, really thoroughly done it, you may begin the path of the masters, or you may begin at some point the angelic path. And always before you will be another mountain to climb, no matter where you go. Yeah, and that's kind of how it is. And I think I'm digressing again here. But you'll have to forgive me, it tends to happen. It's a bit like channeling in a sense that when I start talking, and people start asking questions of me, I get this, it's kind of like I move aside a little bit and this something else, another aspect of me, a higher aspect of me comes to the forefront and tends to answer questions. I often take notes of presentations I do and conversations I have because I will often say things I've never thought of, answers to problems I've never considered. And that's largely, by the way, where all of my work comes from. You could say all of my work is, channeled is the wrong word for it, but it's like definitely inspirational, like from the higher self and the higher aspects of me flowing down through me. And of course, the secret to allowing that to happen is to remove the blockages in your belief system. That's where, for true spiritual development, that's where everything revolves around that, in your beliefs. You'll be shocked when you look at your belief system and you start taking apart it in a structured way, how much garbage you've got in your belief system. And this includes programming.
Yeah.
You've had, from the time you were born, you were programmed by your parents, your peers, by society, and later by television and radio and advertising and everything like that, and the governments of the world, to believe this and believe that. When, if you take a scientific approach to it, and my approach to belief systems is to apply scientific method to your belief systems in what you believe in. And that came about, if some of you may know, my document called the Catch Basket Concept, which details an experience I had when a master materialized to me. The biggest experience with a master of my whole life. And this master gave me the most important information I've ever received. And that is to what the master called the way of the master. And the master said, it has always been done this way. It will always be done this way because there is no other way of doing it. And that is to apply yourself to personal experience. So when you're talking about spiritual experiences, spiritual beliefs and that, it's kind of like in the world, it's like a smorgasbord. We go up there and we get our tongs out and we say, oh, a bit of Buddhism is always nice to have, and a little bit of, this with that, a bit of Catholic sauce over the top, a little bit of this. We pick all these beliefs, and in a sense that, have you ever heard the words, I choose to believe that because that resonates with me?
Sure, yeah.
Now that's like huge. You choose to believe something because it resonates with you, and inside of you, you get this signature telling you that it's true. Maybe because it fits in with a lot of other beliefs, and it seems reasonable or logical to you. But having that approach to spirituality, you have no idea, really, what is real and what isn't real. And herein lies the danger.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Robert, and
Yep.
bring in one of our guests' questions that's just been posted up, because it sort of relates to that.
Okay.
You partially answered it earlier on, and the question is from one of our guests, and they say, question for Robert, can the encountered non-physical beings be both real and a figment of the imagination, i.e., both true at the same time?
Yes, definitely. Because when you have an experience, when you encounter a being, now, for example, that being may not have a form. It may not have a physical form. It may never have had a physical form, or not for millions of years anyway. And so when you encounter that being, which is maybe a point of energy, when you connect with that, with your astral senses, let's say maybe it's during meditation or it's during an astral projection or whatever, this energy affects you, it impinges on you, and it will give you an atmosphere feeling with it. But if you have astral sight or clairvoyance of any kind there, now that will hit you through the third eye, and it will trigger the sight center of your brain because if you are visual clairvoyant, so, like I am, and that will trigger. It doesn't have a form to go with it, so that energy will affect the sight center of your brain through your learned mental visual associations, and this energy, your brain, you could say, the sight centers that rule that, will say this energy feels like a butterfly, and you will see a butterfly.
Yeah.
Even though the energy or the being or the master has never had a physical form like a butterfly, you may see a beautiful animated being, like the most gorgeous animation you could imagine.
Yes.
And higher beings will often appear animated like beautiful, beautiful cartoon-like beings.
Can I butt in again, Robert, for a second? It brings to mind another question, and this is something that those that have an interest in the shamanic are more aware of, where individuals who have taken psychotropic substances like ayahuasca had that type of experience, in that they feel connected to other beings, particular beings within nature, okay? Or they feel that they have become that being, like they become the eagle, they become the snake. What's your experience of that? And do you think why is there a reason for that? To aid our understanding or to aid our evolution?
Well, the shamanic tradition, the shamanic approach is a very valid one. My approach to life is hugely shamanic. I follow signs and omens, but the experience of connecting with animals, living animals, spirit animals, is very, very much like connecting with other human beings. Now, you can connect with an eagle, for example, and you can feel your relationship with that eagle, that it is a part of you. It is like your brother or sister. You are a part of that. Now, this applies to animals, but if you apply that same approach to other human beings as well, you will find you will also see within them, this is your brother, your sister. It's a part of you. It's very, very, very strongly connected. But of course, a lot of people are not very easy to connect with because they're, some people it's very easy to connect to someone that's beautiful. A person who's loving and kind and nice, someone you really relate to. It's not easy to connect to an open person. person is not very nice. It's very, very difficult. So we tend to like be repelled by them, and so you should, because I mean nobody wants to be impinged upon by a human being with a negative personality. It's going to impact you in a negative way. So we tend to be selective. But no, that's a very valid approach, and it just goes to show you the connectivity we have between all living beings. And you only have to listen. And you can connect to your dog, your cat, and other people. You can connect to them much more strongly. It takes a bit of maturity, a little bit of discernment there, particularly when you're connecting with human beings. You've got to have that like barrier there, because some people, as I said, you don't really want to connect with them, but you can connect to them so far. And often, when you have a limited connection with someone, you can reach them and you can bring out the good side of that person. You might,
and like a relationship, it isn't forever either, is it? It doesn't have to be forever. You can connect with someone very strongly for a short period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with spirits, to finish off a question you started earlier,
yeah, go on.
I have the same approach to spirits as I do to strangers. Now, if a complete stranger at 10 o'clock tonight, if a complete stranger walks up to your door, knocks on the door, and says, "Hi, I'm John. Can I come in?" Would you let a complete stranger into your house? He said, "Oh, I'm Bob. You know, I'm John. Whatever his name is. You know, I want to come in. I'm hungry and tired." Would you let them in?
Good question.
If you did, there's a possibility you could end up as on the front page of the newspaper sometime later, and it could be a murderer or something like that. You don't know. But I mean, what normally happens if a complete stranger knocks on your door and wants to come in or bothers you or something, you will, you know, ask them to leave and leave you alone. If they persist, you will call the police. Because you know, common sense and life experience tells us it's really not a good idea to let some stranger into your house, because they might do you in or steal from you or whatever, or harm your family in some way. It's kind of a given that something bad's going to happen. Now, I have the same approach to spirits. It's like trust is earned. You don't just give trust to a person or a spirit just because they appear in front of you and knock on your door. You know, you have to go about the same process as you would use when you meet a new person that might be in your neighbourhood or at work or something. You go through a process of getting to know them, you know, that they are real, maybe seeing what people they know and things like that. And over a period of time, you build up a little bit of trust, and they're doing the same thing to you. It's the same with spirits. You know, you build a relationship with a spirit there. It's based upon mutual trust, which is developed. It isn't just given just because a spirit turns, "Hey, I'm a spirit, let me in." You know, it's the same with the person knocking on your door. It's the same principle applies. And this is a very common sense approach to working with any level spirit. Even spirits which appear as something magnificent. They may appear as an angel. And you don't have the experience, but it looks like an angel, talks like an angel, it says it's an angel, and it wants to talk and get to know you and that. I mean, just because a spirit says that doesn't mean it is what it says it is. You know, it's common sense here. Particularly in the subtle environment where a spirit being can take any shape it chooses. You can do this when in an astral projection or lucid dream. Mm-hmm. You can take on the shape of a tiger. If you can hold the body image of a tiger in your mind, you will take on the shape of a tiger. It's called shape-shifting. It's very simple to do.
Yeah.
And spirits are very good at this. So why would you let a spirit in just because it looks like an angel?
A linked question comes to mind, and it's something that maybe is used as a device in popular media, you know, like Harry Potter, as an example, where you have people shape-shifting in physical reality, or appear to be. I suppose they would call it magic. Does that help to explain that? Would the explanation be something like that? Someone sees what appears to be a tiger, but in fact is another person projecting themselves as a tiger, but they think they're in waking reality. It's in waking reality rather than non-physical reality.
It can be. As I say, it's very easily done in the subtle realms after projection and things like that. But it can also be done in physical reality. I mean, if you understand angels and masters, they really do walk among us as physical beings.
Well, of course, we're kind of up to Christmas, and of course the whole Christmas idea, no disrespect to anyone that's Christian, is about an encounter between a young lady, angelic beings, and a being presenting itself as the G being. Yeah. So what's the difference? That's a beautiful example of what we're talking about, isn't it?
It depends upon the nature of the being. I mean, as I said, some discernment is needed, and you also have your free will. Do you remember, Stephen, when we did that Medium's Night gig?
Oh gosh, yeah, in near London, yes.
That was a
charity event, yeah.
Yeah, but if you remember, I think it was the final one, and we did this gig at the I think it was the Old Cock.
The haunted pub in St Albans, yeah.
Well, near the end of that, do you remember what happened? I was standing out the front talking to one of the cameramen and producers.
JJ.
And, I was talking to JJ and another guy, I forget his name, he was carrying the camera.
Was it young Mark or one of the helpers, yeah?
One of the helpers, yeah. And there was a lady, because during that night, I was there for psychic security, that was my job. And there were, each of these gigs, particularly this place, we had several people, mainly young women, who collapsed with like possession attacks. I mean, falling down in convulsions. And I would take them out with a couple of strong lads helping there. We'd drag them out the front there, and I'd stand them over huge coils of garden hose, and I'd spray them with some holy water, do some banagements and that, and sort the problem out. Now, and after the gig was out there, I was out the front, and they were having a smoke out the front of the building. And the cameraman said, "Do you notice that every time we have a woman that falls down and has convulsions?" They said there was this middle-aged woman in a pale blue two-piece outfit standing nearby smiling. And she keeps smiling at me. She's always nearby when...
Yes, I remember you said that, yeah.
Anyway, we're standing at the front there, and as we're talking about this woman, we're saying, well, what she is and what's happening. I sensed something was up. And this woman walked out of this pub, and there was just a brick wall, plain brick wall for about probably 30 yards, I suppose, long, nothing there. And this lady, as we're talking about her, walked into the middle of this wall, turned around to face us, leaned against the wall, smiled, and vanished. And the cameraman said, "Oh no, why wasn't my camera running? Why? And it was like stunning. We were just stunned, but we saw it with our own eyes. Now, that's an example of they walk among us. Yeah. That's an example of an angel or a master taking human form. And this woman was a physical human being. You could have patted her on the shoulder, had a meal with her, whatever, and these beings are known to walk among us at certain times to help with certain things, to bring certain things about. They seem to want to help us. Now, why do they help us? Why do we give money to the poor? Why do we help other people when we can? I mean, many of us do. If there was a hungry child on the street, and if a 10-year-old child walked up to anyone here on the street, pulled your shirt, "So I'm really hungry, can I have some food?" I doubt that any one of you would hesitate to buy that child, at least buy that child some food, or give them food if you're carrying it. You would share it. You'd help. And then maybe you'd say, "Where's your mummy and daddy?" Maybe you'd make a phone call to help them out.
Yeah. Robert, this has been a wonderful conversation. We've got some viewers online. We've got some viewers on YouTube as well. We've got a couple of people in our Hangout as well. We've got Layla with us. We had a few other people that had hoped to join us. I've sent them invitations. Hopefully, if they're not viewing live and have been unable to join the Hangout, then I hope that they're enjoying watching anyway. If not, they can watch later on YouTube. We've got YouTube viewers as well, of course. So everyone's more than welcome, and I hope you're enjoying our conversation this afternoon. I'm going to post a couple of questions to you, Robert, that were asked offline. One by Tom Llewellyn, who hopefully is watching us. Hi, Tom. Nice of you to join us. And Tom's question does relate a little bit to what we've been talking about, but I'll read it out to you anyway, Robert. He says, I would like to know your thoughts, Robert's thoughts, on the use of NVC, non-verbal communication, thought bundles, telepathy, etc., in the spirit realms, and its relevancy and applications also to waking physical life.
Well, it has a lot to do with where I'm coming from. Now, what you're talking about here particularly focus on what Robert Monroe called a ROT ball, R-O-T, which is a piece of highly compressed information, which is telepathic, like a little telepathic ball, an orb, which is passed to a person, and it goes into your mind, and then when it's triggered through association of some kind, there's compressed, it's like unzipping a zip file. It explodes into your mind, and you get a complex idea in your mind. This relates directly to my catch basket concept here, where that if you look at your belief systems and why they're so important to actually apply personal experience in that, to actually process them. And what you do basically is you go through all the things you believe in, and you make up one big list, and then you make another one which you have hard personal experience with. And when I first did that at the Master's instruction, I ended up with page after page, a full gap page of the things I believed in. But he said, now make a list of the things that you believe in, you have actual personal experience with. And I ended up with a very small list of about 9 items, including astral projection, healing, energy, and spirits, angels, like 9 items. Not very much when you compare it to the huge a list I had before. So what I did, I made those 9 things, which were very, very solid, into my core beliefs in my heart. This is my foundation beliefs here. I made another list, and I put everything which I think is probably true, but I don't have personal experience to support it, sits over here in my probable list. And I have one more list over here. Everything else goes in the possible list. Things I think are possible, but I can't say they're probable. So I move things from the possible list to the probable list. And when I have personal experience, I take an item from that into my core belief structure here. Now, this is applying a scientific method to yourself, into your belief system. Now, what this does, you could say source, God, higher spirit beings, and angels live in absolute truth. Your higher self, which is your super consciousness level, it's not just slightly smarter than you, it's massively more intelligent. Your higher self can also be called God or source, because you're connecting directly to that super consciousness. Now, communications between your higher self and you is generally abstract. But what happens here, when you get information coming from your higher self, it often comes down as compressed telepathic information. Robert Monroe's rock balls here.
Okay.
And but what happens here? If you contain in your core beliefs a lot of stuff that you believe in with your heart and soul, maybe, that are false, which are not correct, which are absolute lies, maybe. You have them in your core belief here. And let's say the average person suffers from this. and that makes your belief systems triangular. Okay? Now, let's say we do have this. We have a perceptual filter over our minds between us and our higher self and the greater spiritual reality. So let's say you have a triangular perceptual filter sitting over your mind, that everything comes through it has got to come through that triangle. So obviously only triangular stuff can come through. But let's say that your higher self and source, all truth and creativity is circular. Orbs of truth, highly compressed telepathic bundles of thought, of creativity, of knowledge. All knowledge already exists up here in the super consciousness there. But when you try to bring something down, you've got a triangular belief system filter here. So when you force orbs through triangles, they are severely damaged or destroyed. And this is why we block off from source. And by following the very simple instructions in my article, The Catch Basket Concept, you might want to make the article available to people on the YouTube page so they can download the PDF of it.
Certainly. We'll put that up later, Robert. Yeah.
It shows you how to.
Sorry again, interrupting you. There's a related question to that posted by one of our anonymous guests, and they say that, we'll make sure that your Catch Basket article is posted on YouTube for you. Does everyone exist and experience the same physical reality, or do we each exist in our own self-created physical universe? This is a very Tom Campbell sort of esque type idea, but I know that it's something that you think about a lot as well, and it does link to what you've just been talking about. So does everyone exist in and experience the same physical reality, or do we each exist in our own self-created physical universe?
Both are correct. Now, we share a consensus reality, a consensus belief in reality, and that includes the laws of physics and gravity. Now, depending on your beliefs, if you are very materialistic and the only thing you believe in are the laws of physics, that is your only connection to the greater reality, God/source. And you get this very, very impersonal contact where the laws of physics only apply to you, and you are basically cut off from the greater reality in that sense, because that is your choice, because these are your beliefs. Now, as you open those beliefs up and you have different beliefs, you believe in certain things. Now, whether you are even a schizophrenic that believes in a different reality from other people, that's an example. For them, a delusional schizophrenic, that is incredibly real and solid to them. It's to the point where it's unbreakable. You could never convince them otherwise. But yeah, but reality can change and will change according to your beliefs, because the greater spiritual reality in God is, if you have materialistic beliefs, absolutely impersonal. Laws of physics only apply, apart from an occasional maybe event happening. And by law, the laws of physics mean that if there is a cataclysm occurring in your locale, you are likely to experience that plane crash or that volcano or that tidal wave or whatever it is. And you know, laws of physics apply, therefore you probably won't survive. But if you have a stronger contact by having beliefs in the greater reality and a more personal contact there, the greater reality becomes very, very personal, and you develop a very strong relationship. And then when something bad is going to happen to you, for example, or in the area you're in, you are going to receive information, maybe little ideas will explode in your mind. I think I'll go visit Robert in Australia at Christmas time. I don't know why, but I really want to go there. And you go visit somebody and you find the tidal wave or whatever has happened, which would have killed you if you'd stayed there. And that's an excessive event, but this could apply to a million and one different things. You know, whether you're in the right place at the right time, whether you get that job or you don't get that job. A lovely story I like to tell on how this works, it's very shamanic. There's a man, I did my first ever workshop, which was in Wales in UK. And he was in the military in the United States Navy. And after the war, he was stationed in Japan. And he said one day in Japan, he got up and he was a young lieutenant, I think he was. And he normally, as a driver, he gets driven into work because he's an officer. But this one day, he just got an idea popped into his head. Beautiful day. I think I'll take a bus just for something different. It's a beautiful day. So he walked out, a few hundred yards from this where he was living, and stood by the bus stop on this beautiful day. And there was a young Japanese woman there waiting for the bus, and he sat down. And then, very unseasonably, these clouds raced in and started to rain. And this young lady graciously shared her umbrella with him. 4 weeks later, they were married. And they've been together like 50 years. So a very long time that they've been together. You can see, however, that's an example of how you call it synchronicity, call it blind, anything you like. But things like that seem to happen a lot more to people who are more open to the greater spiritual reality. And that's through whatever religion you might believe in or belief system you might have. Whether you are Roman Catholic or a Protestant or a Hindu or Islamic, or whether you're shamanistic or whatever. It doesn't matter how you attach to these bright glowing threads of the spiritual hierarchy of the universe. But when you attach to it and believe in that direction in some way, shape or form, you get this more personal approach. Life is much more fluid and flexible than you may otherwise imagine. I think I want to talk there a little bit.
Couple of quick questions that have been posted in advance for you, Robert. I hope that Tom, that your question was answered well, and to our other guest, hope that I think Robert's answer was really interesting, and I'm sure that relates to what maybe you were thinking about. Ulla has two questions for you, Robert. The first question is, how can we best explore the different dimensions that exist? It's a very general question. Especially the higher ones, and I think maybe you've been talking about this a little bit, but maybe not how we actually have a process to do that. I think she's asking, how can we best do that? And then she says, yeah, I'll let you answer that one first.
Everybody does the same thing when they approach this question. Everybody does the same thing. From all walks of life, no matter what your religion or belief or whatever. You go out looking for God. You travel the world, you talk to holy people and wise men, you read holy books, you go to holy places. And most people, you might spend probably an average of 20 years searching for this. And you start ticking off all this stuff off the list. And finally, when there's nothing left, you realise there's only one thing left on the list. And it was kind of boring, and that's why it's the last thing on the list. And that is to go within. Because if you think about it, you are directly connected to God, to higher self, to source inside of you. And therefore, you, your mind, your body, and your life are the closest and most approachable direction if you want to explore the higher realities. Is actually through your own life, through yourself. And the way to do that is to go within, to meditate, to start getting to know yourself, deconstructing yourself, understanding yourself. Socrates said it all. The wisest words I've ever heard. Man, know thyself. That's where it's all about. Because when you start exploring that, and you start exploring your life, your present life, your past life, your motivations, and all the curly bits as well, all the issues and problems we've got in that, And if you spend enough time exploring that, you will eventually come face to face with God. It's not outside of you anywhere. It's inside of you, and it always was inside of you. But we human beings, as we are born and we grow up, we tend to block all this out because we're so immersed in the physical reality. As like Tom Candle says, it's like a digital virtual reality, and it does behave like that. It's a good analogy to describe it. You can also, astral projection, meditation, prayer, lucid dreaming, all of the above, working with your chakras, all of that are all ways to exercise your spiritual body, to move in different directions, all of these things help to change the mind through experiences which tend to open us up to more and more of the greater spiritual reality. But the greater spiritual reality is not anywhere outside of yourself. It is all inside of yourself. And again, the most direct approach to anything is through your own body and mind. You start meditating, you start working on yourself, learn to astral project, energy work, raise your kundalini, things like that.
I'm glad you've mentioned that, Robert. And again, pardon me interrupting you, because it relates to Ulla's second question, which is that she's heard that meditating during your out-of-body experience can, I think she means, lead to wonderful experiences. Is this true? So in other words, while you're having your experience in the non-physical reality, bringing yourself into a state of meditation within that, rather than meditating and then having a non-physical experience, going into the non-physical, and then having an intent to go into another a sort of more meditative state. I think that's how I read the question. But
it will.
What do you think?
It will. It definitely does. There is a direct connection between your physical body and the activity of this physical body, the activity of your mind, and your energy body and the chakras, which together, when your chakras change levels of activation, that directly affects your spiritual experience. Now, when that is happening, if you are out of body or in a lucid dream and you undertake the similar sorts of things here, like if you're having an astral projection and you stop thinking, still your mind. When you stop thinking, after a few seconds, you'll find your chakras start to get more and more active. You start to fall into an altered state of consciousness. Your energy body expands, your chakras become more active, and whether you do that in the physical life or particularly in an astral projection or lucid dream, that will cause a lot more activity and will tend to shift your location to a higher, more profound spiritual realm.
Okay.
And will often also trigger other experiences. Some of these things will trigger initiation type experiences, which you could say are built into, these are programs that are built into the greater reality. For example, when you activate your energies to X level of vibrations, you trigger the burning bush initiation. When you do this, you trigger another initiation. And these things can appear to be like real spiritual beings, like the first question, taking part in it. But you'll find in many of these initiation experiences which are triggered, if you try to talk to any of the beings in there, they talk over the top of you. It's like trying to talk to the television while you're watching a video. The characters they're performing their task, but they're not really what you call a real thinking being that's actually there. And these are the most common sort of initiations. There are higher initiations which involve actual spirit beings and masters and even angels, but they're a different matter. But there are a lot of initiations, not all of them, which are woven into the fabric, which you think about, that would be very, very, it's like in a computer, repeated things which are happening all the time. You have a little daemon that runs around there. When this happens, it does this, it activates this program, and everything runs smoothly. think of the logistics of it. It makes sense.
We've got Layla with us, and I've been holding her back for a little while from asking questions. Layla, let's find out if we can hear you okay. Do you want to just talk?
Okay, hello.
Fantastic, and we can hear you loud and clear. So Layla, you've been chatting to us in the chat window, which is separate from the question and answer window that we have for guests who are watching the broadcast, and you've put up some really interesting things. So Robert, if you bring up the chat yourself, you'll see some of what Layla's been saying, but maybe Layla, in your own words, if there's something you'd like to say, it's all yours.
Oh, well, I don't know. I was just happy to type it out, but yeah, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but in my personal experience, if you meet a being and it has to tell you that it's an angel, I would definitely question that, because in my experience, there was absolutely no introduction was necessary. I already knew these beings, and it was more like remembering who they were, because I had known them for, God, I don't know, thousands, maybe even millions of years, in between lives, life after life after life, and I came to an awareness that I'm with them when I'm in between lives. When I'm not here, I'm with them.
I agree. I've encountered a number of angels and also a number of masters in my life here, and not once has a master or an angel introduced itself. Never. They just appear and they give you instruction, and when the instruction's over, they leave.
Yeah, I think it's in their energy.
Sometimes it's very formal. Yeah, sometimes it's very formal, and there's often voice instruction involved. They may manifest and talk with a voice, or they do it symbolically, but they don't seem to. This angels particularly seem to be very formal in their approach. You may have a procession, they'll do certain things which are very symbolic, and then they'll leave, or you might see them doing certain things, but I've never had an experience where I've been able to sit down and chit-chat with a master or an angel. Never. So I look upon other people that say they talk to angels and things like that, but I look at the content of the conversation and I think, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I have yet to encounter a spirit being that will have a discussion with a human that actually has any level of knowledge that says it does. I have yet to meet a spirit being that will communicate to me through other people and channels that has a higher level of knowledge than I have, by far. When you really test your spirits in this way here, I've found by and large, in all the spirits I've done this with, they are severely lacking. And in all cases, when I've had some, conversation and questioning going, and I'm pretty nice and polite, always get to a point there where they break contact with me and they demand that the channel they're working with also breaks contact with me. It's interesting. But I'm very open to being proven wrong. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that channel really worthy spirits. I just haven't encountered any. Yeah, not personally anyways, but I'm always open to that level of discussion.
Layla, I hope that helped to answer your question a little bit. Just before I'm sure you've got another burning question in mind. Just before you do that, as we're coming up to nearly 25 past the hour, and we had said to our guests that we would run to about on the half hour and then close the live broadcast, I thought, because we started a little bit late, I'd like to give everyone the benefit of a few extra minutes. Would that be okay with you, Robert? Can I keep you on? We'll keep the live broadcast going for, would an extra 15 minutes be okay with you, Rob? Yeah?
Sure.
And then after the live broadcast has ended, what we'll do is we'll shut the live broadcast and then we'll go into a closed session again, and then we can finish outside of that. So again, thank you to everyone that's joined us today. Thank you to our guests who are watching at another time on YouTube or in Google+. We've got Robert Bruce with us. He's a metaphysical researcher, an author, teacher, healer, many things. Robert, tell us a little bit about some of the activities that you're carrying out at the moment. What's in your ballpark at the moment?
You mean my spiritual activities or
Your
my
spiritual activities,
activities?
writing,
Well,
projects.
most of my spiritual activities are quite private, as are the nature of those things here. By the way, just a little time out, it just popped into my head here. In case you're wondering why I'm always like moving around in my chair like I do, I have serious spinal injuries, which I've had for decades, in my neck, upper back, lower back, and I suffer generally zero pain and disability. I've just got to be a bit careful. But I find apart from energy work and exercise, I have to move. If I sit too long in one place, I lock up and I'll fall over. So I just have to move a little bit and everything's happy. I don't have any pain. I just use energy work and self-healing to treat myself. But just in case you're wondering, I look a bit fidgety when you see me on these videos and that. But and to answer your question, we're in the middle. We're about to start filming of a new video-based program called Defense Against the Dark Arts, which is about practical psychic self-defense. It'll relate to my book, and we're trying to make a bit of a docudrama out of it. Instead of me presenting all the time, we're going to do a lot of field work, you know, showing people how to apply my countermeasures, and also reenacting some experiences I've had, which are kind of mind-blowing. So we're having a lot of fun with the technicalities of that. But,
when do you hope
to? I'm tossing around, you know, possibly writing another book. I've got a dozen different ones I could be doing, but the last couple of years I've been focusing on the online programs and that, as opposed to writing and that. So that's about where I'm at, and I'm just really, really, really enjoying my life.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Robert. We'll make sure that we post up any recent web links you've got and your latest work. And as soon as you know that you're about to release your video work, do let us know. We'll forward that on to our membership and to any viewers who in this particular group. Obviously, we've got you back again tomorrow. We really look forward to that. So we'll carry on the conversation. I want to bring Layla back in again. We've got another question from one of our guests. I want to give Layla a chance to talk. And you've met Layla before. I know that you get on well. So, Layla, please, any thoughts there, Layla?
Okay. Oh, I don't know. I didn't really have any questions. It was just more of a comment, really.
That's perfectly fine. Please go ahead.
What was that you were talking about? Channeling again?
What about
was that myself, Layla, or was it Robert you were referring to?
No, it was Robert.
Well, an interesting point about channeling, I kind of left it in the air. There's a lot of people channel a spirit, and sometimes the spirit is not. They might give you beautiful philosophy, but they might not be giving anything really interesting or useful. One of the things that most people don't know in the nature of spirit communications, which are very real, is that if you get to a point where you outgrow the spirit you're with and it's not really being useful to you, you can send it away just by asking it to go away and send back a superior spirit, send me back somebody more knowledgeable. And they will quietly go away, and at some point another spirit will appear that is more knowledgeable. And you repeat that process until you get a spirit that is more interesting. Thank you, Winnie.
Do we have a spirit, Robert?
I could yell at her and tell her to be quiet, but she'll completely ignore me.
Perfectly.
She takes guarding the house very seriously. Sorry.
Yeah, I would just tell people that it should vibrate in its energy what it is. You should just be in the presence of it and automatically know what it is, just through clairsentience, through its very powerful vibration, without having to ask it anything or without it having to tell you anything.
You can, And what you're saying, when you're in the presence of an advanced spiritual being, you do get this wonderful atmosphere. Just like if you're in the presence of a really negative entity or a demon, you'll get a really scary type atmosphere. The opposite applies here. But please keep in mind that a benevolent atmosphere, like you were saying, can also be faked.
Mm-hmm.
Just like shape-shifting, it can be faked.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of information. If you look at, for example, into the areas of case histories of serial killers and things like that, you will find that some of these sociopath, psychopathic type serial killers there will give out this wonderful atmosphere around them when you first meet them. They engender trust and really like them, you're drawn to them, what a wonderful person. And then at some point while you're with them, that switches off and this cold atmosphere appears and you know you're in big trouble. Yeah,
I've had some. Mm-hmm. I've had some experiences where something was trying to pull that on me, but I noticed that I kind of came up against a block. Like when I pressed at it with my awareness, like really trying to discern what this thing was, I came up kind of against a block. And as soon as I hit that block, I'm like, oh, you're hiding something. Like especially if they try to hide their face from you, or they don't want you to look directly at them, then that's I just start attacking immediately, because I'm like, if you're hiding something, anything, then that's deception, which automatically throws up every red flag and every alarm, and I just go into attack mode.
See, the key word you said there was discernment. Forgive my puppy. She'll quiet down a minute. The key word there is discernment and testing your spirits. Now, just like as I said, if a complete stranger knocks on your door in the middle of the night, you don't suddenly give them trust and say, oh, come in, here's my car keys, my wallet's over there, help yourself if you need anything. It's like, you don't do that. That's crazy. It's the same with spirit. Trust is earned, one little piece at a time. And it's the same with spirits. Now, if you get a master or an angel appears here, there's no need for that. Any kind of discernment or questioning the spirit or finding out what it's doing is not needed, because you get this boom, it's like an atomic bomb going off. It's just there. This massive energy, the master or the angel will give you instruction, no choice about that, and then it will leave. There's no chance to talk to you, there's no conversation involved. Now, anything that lesser beings, where there is some conversation involved, and maybe some permission is sought from the entity to, can I come into your house? And that's something which you need to be cautious about. It's common sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find that a good old-fashioned circle of protection will keep out pretty much any malevolent entity. I mean, I set mine up. Circle. Mm-hmm. What was that?
Sorry. Keep in mind, if you make a mistake, and let's say you're approached by a benevolent higher spiritual being, and you do a banishment on it, and you do a pentagram banishment on it, and or you're in a circle and you take, you apply countermeasures to it there. Any spirit, advanced spirit, is going to smile. Say, that's why you're cautious. Let's hope you're not totally paranoid that you're going to shut everything out, because that's a problem in itself as well. You've got to be discerning, but also you've got to have a little bit of wisdom and common sense there as well.
Robert, we've got another question from one of our online guests. Quite a long question. Can you see the question in the window? If not, press the question and answer button on the left-hand side. But I'll read it to you anyway. And
I've got the group chat up.
Yeah. The question is, so what does... Say it again, please, Robert.
I just clicked on a button that says question and answer coming up, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll read it to you while you look at it as well. The question is, so what part does conscious human choice play in this physical reality? The act of making a conscious choice to do this or that, does it actually happen, or is it just the end result of an unconscious play out that precedes it? So that's quite a deep question. I'll give you a second to have a look at that.
I'd have to say again that both apply. I mean, when you're looking at there, it's like one is destiny. Do we have any free will? That's what I'm extracting from the question here. What part does conscious human choice play in this physical reality? Well, in my experience, it appears to play a lot. Like the permission issue when you're dealing with spirit entities, and that permission is huge. There is often, you'll find if you encounter any negative type spirits in that, they can't affect you unless you give them some level of permission. So that's just an example there. And I think often when if you're approached by higher good spirit beings, it also a level of permission is required to work with them. But I mean, destiny is a part as well. You could say that everything is happening according to a plan. Do we have free will? But I think every choice you make changes reality. You make a choice there. Have you ever seen a movie called Sliding Doors?
Heard of it, yeah.
It's a very good movie. It came out several years ago. It's a dollar a week type one now, Sliding Doors. And this is one where the movie is made around it, where she's running for a train, and her foot slips out of her shoe. Now, in one reality, she grabs the shoe and runs on one foot and continues running and gets on the train before the door shut. In the other reality, she stops for a moment, pulls the strap back on, and then runs for the door and misses it, and the door shuts. And if you know what British Rail is like, once that door's shut, it's shut forever. Yeah, and her life went off at a tangent then. The one that got on the train got home early, caught her husband in bed with her best friend, and the other reality, she got home later and didn't find out about that. But her life went in completely different tangents from that one there. One was a very, very negative, like dark outcome. The other one was quite a bright, happy outcome. And life is a bit like that. That's a really good example of how life can work. If you make a decision now, a choice, you can radically alter the direction of your future life. I don't know if I'm actually getting the question or not. But,
well, our guest, if they...
the best I can do unless you elaborate.
The response to that, and we'll try and get back to the response. I hope you're still with us, and hope that Robert's question does answer your question. Robert's response answer your question. Let me see if we have any other questions available for you, Robert. While we're doing that, again, thank you for anyone that's joined us from YouTube and on our Google Plus session, and to our visitors who are joining us on the repeat showing. So you're more than welcome. Layla's got some notes up. Layla, do you want to ask another question? You put something
yeah, sure. So I was doing some Kundalini exercises, and like I was doing it through the Kabbalah path working, like we talked about before, and I was doing the middle pillar, and then I started having a very intense vibration in the coccyx and the tailbone area, and it was so strong I had to break out of it because I just really couldn't stand it. It was such an intense vibration, and I shifted like out of my energy body back into my physical body just like to get away from it. I could still kind of feel it though, and I was wondering like, is that it? Is that like going to crack at some point and then the Kundalini rise?
Yeah. What you broke away from then, and some of the things that can happen can be quite fear-inducing. Well, if you think about the enormous amount of work you put into raising Kundalini, and then it starts to happen, and then you stop it. But that is common sense, because when something gets way beyond your comfort zone, it's a good idea, if you can, to stop that. And my golden rule, I call it, applies here. When you get something very strong happen like that, it's a good idea to stop and wait. And the human physical body and the energy body responds to stimulus like that, very strong events. By evolving, it grows to meet the challenge. It's like if you're lifting heavy weights every day, your body will respond to that challenge by making your muscles bigger, your tendons stronger, your bones stronger. Your body responds to what you're doing. Your spiritual body and chakras do the same thing. So what you do is you take a break and then go back to that exercise again and approach it again. It may happen again. It may be stronger. It may be milder. You may be able to handle it better. If you keep going back to it and then taking a break, go back to it, take a break, just like weightlifting, you'll find that whatever is happening there with that intense vibration in the coccyx there, your energy body will evolve to handle that better. It's common sense. But now when you trigger actual Kundalini raising, you're likely to lose control of the experience in the sense that it will happen. It's like a sneeze happening. When you start to sneeze, there's like nothing you can do to stop it. You know, it's going to go through its course and you're going to sneeze. It's kind of like that, and yeah.
Okay. I already started having the issue with the mood swings from it. Like I had like a wave of anger, and then I wanted to cry, and then I felt exuberant and joyful, and I was like, oh my God. And I was just trying to get a grip on that.
Well, when you're dealing with these sorts of forces there, you are going to reveal a lot of your different aspects and motivations. And like the mood swings, you'll get anger coming. Where's the anger coming from? It's coming from you.
Yeah.
Somewhere inside of you. And this is where the advice of, man, know thyself, going within, exploring yourself, deconstructing yourself, really getting to know yourself, that is when it becomes, you can understand it's very, very powerful advice. I mean, go in, look around, spend a lot of time looking around, really, really get to know yourself. Even the nasty little bits that we don't like to admit we might have. Everything needs to be addressed. And you will find that looking at these things, dealing with those things, has a hugely balancing effect on the energy, body, and mind, and your whole spiritual being in general. And you'll find that will help when you have an extreme event like Kundalini, which is like the climbing Mount Everest in your underwear. For most people, it's quite extreme. You can see you need the more balance you can have there, the easier that path is going to be. But it can be quite extreme. But the way to approach that is looking at what's happened. The heat, for example, if you get a lot of heat and vibration, you can't do a great deal about that because it's just how your chakras are wired. It depends on your elemental equilibrium, what elements, like fire, earth, air, and water, your chakras are wired on, with what and how Kundalini is going to rise and how it's going to affect it.
Layla, I hope you don't mind me butting in. I know that Robert could very easily spend a whole session talking about Kundalini, a whole weekend or a whole week on Kundalini, and we'll bring Kundalini back in another time if that's okay. But we may even bring that in tomorrow. But we've got one last question from, I think it's Jason and Stephanie. Robert, you'll know Stephanie from from Texas, I believe. So Jason's question is, if you can't talk to masters, then how do you ask for advice? So it's a little bit of a trick question, really.
One word: prayer. You pray, you do affirmations, you meditate, and when you are ready, you could say when you are approachable, you will get the help you need.
I think that's an excellent.
There's no way that I know of that does not involve ritual magic, whereby you can have a discussion or ask questions of higher beings. If you want to, you need to begin a study of something like ritual magic. which is approaching. There are various magical formulas for evocation, evoking and invoking high spiritual beings. That's about the only approach I know of that is practical. Otherwise, the default setting is, through prayer and through your life, when you need help, the teacher will appear, sort of thing. We may want otherwise and think, well, I've got all this huge potential, I could do this and could do that. But we all do the same thing. We lose track of one of the most important things in life. We lose track of the journey, of living the journey. We focus so much on the destination. What could be if I only had that, if I only had a train ticket, I could be in London, if I only had this. We're focusing so much on where we want to go, and we're not focusing on the here and now. And particularly internally on the life around you. What has the life around you got to teach you? What is it trying to teach you? Because if you want to really listen to God, God is shouting at you 24/7, has been your entire life, trying to help you, trying to advise you. We don't listen. We've blocked it all out. So removing some of those blockages, particularly where it comes down to your belief systems here, by getting your belief systems in order, so they're all based on personal experience. That's the first big step towards getting some contact with masters and angelic beings. It's not like, I wish we could, how you say, I wish we could just dial them up and, bring them in. But I say, outside of ritual magic, there's no way I know of to really facilitate that. It's either chance encounters or you trigger a meeting or an action from a high being that will come and help you because you've done something here.
Can I come in, Robert, if that's okay?
Yeah.
I think we're going to close shortly. I'm sorry to say to everybody, but we will carry on the conversation after we stop broadcasting. But we will also bring the conversation back in tomorrow afternoon, starting at 12 o'clock UK. But I hope, Jason, that's answered your question. And Stephanie, hopefully you'll be able to join us again tomorrow. Hopefully Layla will be able to join us again tomorrow. If not, we'll make sure that you get access to the archive of the show. Robert, you're going to ask a question yourself. You're going to say something?
Yeah, just wanted to finish off just for a moment here. I feel I left it hanging there a little bit. When I have a question, when I need help, I've learned something over the years. I've learned to be vigilant. I do affirmations, I pray, I ask for help, but then the next part is to take action by being vigilant. And I have faith in this because it's happened so often. It's reliable. If I need something, it appears, but it appears in odd ways. Somebody might mention something, a complete stranger, I get a Skype, I get a letter, I get an email, I get a phone call. Somebody will say something. Somebody has a dream and tells me about it. And this information comes to me from all different directions, advice I need. And I've learned to be vigilant and look at it. Like if I get an email that says something in the subject line here, and I get another email that says something similar, I will Google that, I'll research that, I'll meditate on that. And I'm being vigilant, taking some action and allowing myself to be led. Now, the masters, the spiritual hierarchy, generally work in this way, very shamanically. Now, in their interactions with us, because I've been told by a master that if any direct contact between masters and angels and, the hierarchical beings there would be severely damaging to anyone's life. And it is. You end up with variation, starting a religion, guide worship. It really impacts us and affects us here. So they generally stay back and they work with us in other ways, in very shamanic sort of ways. This is like your higher self working with you as well. And any information, anything you need to know will come to you if you are just open to that information, to allow it to arrive. And it's very exact, very powerful information, indeed, when it comes in. Whether it's health advice, spiritual advice, whatever.
Yeah, Robert, I'm going to have to interrupt you yet again. and we will have to close very shortly. We've got one last question. Can't possibly take any more questions today, but we will be back tomorrow. I'm going to bring that question up for you, Robert, so you can see it. So again, Jason and Stephanie, I hope that's answered that first question you had. They've got a second question for you, Robert. I'll just select that so you should be able to see it. If not, I'll read it out to you anyway.
I've got the question thing up.
Yeah, I'll read it out for you. It says, I run a 90-day guide support group in Austin, Texas, and many have a very difficult time staying with the program. What do you think, in general, is the main thing that keeps people from an out-of-body experience for years, despite a strong desire? That's from Stephanie.
The number one thing would be fear. There was a lot of fear relating to direct astral projection, direct out-of-body experience in the conscious form. It's very confronting to have a fully conscious astral projection. It's, to a slightly lesser extent, lucid dreaming, wake-induced lucid dreaming. Yeah, I would say fear. And also, we have the ability to be distracted by physical life. And so what happens here is we allow ourselves to become distracted and thereby neatly sidestepping the fear and or the confrontation involved. If you have a fully conscious astral projection, you know, where you're fully conscious and awake from the start of the session through the astral projection back to your return of writing it down, no break in consciousness, that's very confronting to your consciousness, to your beliefs in the world and how it works, you know, your beliefs on the spiritual reality, very confronting. And most people find, you know, we tend to avoid confrontations, avoid anything that might be frightening as well. And yeah, we like to play in life, and so we let life distract us. You know, we get caught up, we start playing a game, or we, you know, go on a holiday or something, or get involved with work. And it's kind of the way it is. I mean, there's not much you can really do about it. I mean, beyond the format of what you're doing, I mean, people will tend to drop in and drop out of programs like that. You know, there's not much you can do about it, really. One thing you can do, there is one thing, by the way, to make people be more consistent with programs like that. Charge them more money. It works. You know, if they're doing this free, okay, if people invest a couple of £100 or whatever into a program like that, when it comes to a certain level of commitment, that gives you a sense of value, and they are more likely to continue in that course because they have you get people to invest something into it, and then they continue with it. Stephen, you're muted. Stephen, you're muted. Can't hear.
Yep, thanks again, Robert, for such a wonderful answer. Thank you. And thank you for coming along this afternoon. We really do appreciate you giving of your own time for this. We've had a fantastic conversation. Do have to end this afternoon. We've overrun. Want to thank all our guests, guests in the Hangout, guests in YouTube, and people watching later on. We'll be returning to the same spot Sunday the 14th at 12 o'clock, again with Robert Bruce. We will continue this conversation, and anyone that's already in the Hangout can stay in the Hangout after we stop broadcasting. So again, thank you very much for coming along. Robert, if you want to give one last word to our guests, you're more than welcome.
Nothing springs to mind. But what you're saying there, practice makes perfect. I mean, the programs that we sell online and that, we get really good results with them because people invest in, you know, a significant amount of money into taking the program, so they tend to do them. If I gave those programs away free, then people would just, most people are information, they're knowledge hounds. They just queue up that, watch it, it's interesting, and move on to something else. They never focus on anything and actually do the work. It's doing the work every day. I've proven this in workshops for decades now. If you get people doing energy work and that and all this state work every day, after a few days, everybody's having experiences because they're doing it every day.
Robert, when's your next program of training or instruction? Have you got an online course coming up?
We have online courses. We have the Manifestation and Healing, Self-Healing program.
And how can people find that?
Projection Mastery course. What?
How can they find that course or links to that course?
Go to my website, astraldynamics.com, same as my book, my first book, astraldynamics.com, and you'll find the program guide is there. We've got several different programs there and ebooks and things. Not listed there, we also have a practical astral projection intensive I do with another partner, which is starting up in late January, and that's a 5-week course where we have live interactions through forums and that, where we teach astral projection, energy work, and related stuff. Yeah. And we get a lot of really good results out of that course.
Yeah, I know that one of your viewers is on your. Is it a Kundalini course at the moment, Robert, or something similar?
Oh yeah, we have a course called Raising Kundalini, which is an extensive, in-depth course with me, mainly video-based, there, teaching people how to raise Kundalini, and it's basically using my energy work methods to manipulate and develop the energy body to the point where you can actually raise Kundalini, which is a huge subject, and it has a lot to do with the evolution of the human race.
And how can our guests contact you, Robert? What's the easiest way of being able to speak to you again?
Well, the best way to speak to me, I have a free community site with a big forum. If you go to astraldynamics.org, then my community site there, I've got a big forum there, and I've got a section in there called Ask Robert Bruce, where you can ask me a direct question on various subjects in there, and that's the best way to get hold of me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Robert, thank you yet again. We're going to say cheerio to our live audience. Stay in the Hangout if you're in the Hangout, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you. Cheerio.